My phone screamed at 3:07 a.m. I hadn't heard my sister's voice in weeks, but there she was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "Rachel, please. I need $18,000. Tonight. Or I'm dead. These people will kill me." My heart pounded against my ribs. Despite everything, the years of being ignored, the cruel comments, the way our mother always chose her, I was ready to help. I was already reaching for my laptop to transfer the money. Then Charlotte made a mistake. She forgot to hang up, and I heard everything. A man's voice low and laughing. "Perfect. She'll pay. Then we disappear." Charlotte's voice sharp and mocking. "Told you. She's always been an easy target." I sat frozen in the darkness. My hands trembled. My chest felt hollow. I ended the call without a word. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just lay there until morning staring at the ceiling. But when the police called the next day, what they told me was worse than anything I'd heard that night. Have you ever discovered that the person you'd die for was plotting your destruction? My name is Rachel Hayes. I'm 35 years old, a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm in Pennsylvania, and I've been taking care of myself since the day I turned 18. That's not a boast, it's just the truth. When you grow up as the daughter, nobody worries about you. Learn early that the only person you can rely on is yourself. But to understand what happened that night, to understand why my sister's betrayal cut so deep, you need to know what came before. You need to know the kind of family I come from and the kind of woman I became because of them. 10 years ago, I fell in love with a man named David. At least that's what he told me his name was. He was charming, attentive, and made me feel like I was finally visible after a lifetime of being overlooked. I was going to marry him. I was certain of it. Then one morning, I woke up and he was gone, along with $15,000 I'd saved over 3 years. I never told my family. I was too ashamed. I just picked up the pieces and made myself a promise never again. Never trust anyone that completely. Never let anyone get close enough to destroy you. That experience shaped everything about who I am now. I became someone who tracks every dollar, questions every signature, documents every detail. It's why I chose accounting control over chaos. It's why I live alone in a small apartment with no roommates, no boyfriend, no one who could take what I've built. Some people might call that lonely. I call it safe. A few years back, I received a strange letter from a bank I'd never used asking about a credit account I'd never opened. I called them immediately. They told me it was resolved and not to worry. I let it go, but I kept that letter in a folder just in case. Old habits. My sister Charlotte is 4 years younger than me. She's 31, unemployed, and has lived off our parents' money for as long as I can remember. Our mother has always protected Charlotte with a fierceness I never understood. Once when I jokingly asked why Charlotte seemed to get away with everything, my mother's face went white. "You don't understand what she started to say. Then she stopped herself and walked out of the room. I never asked again. Charlotte and I have never been close. Behind her sweet smile, I've always sensed something bitter, a resentment she never explained. She has everything our parents can give her, yet she looks at my modest apartment, my stable job, my quiet independence like I've stolen something from her. This past Thanksgiving, the tension was worse than ever. Charlotte spent half the dinner on her phone, then stepped outside to take a call. Through the door, I heard her arguing with someone, a man's voice I couldn't quite place. Something about a deadline. Something about how she doesn't suspect anything. When she came back inside, her face was flushed. I asked if she was okay. Her answer was ice cold. "Mind your own business. Not everything is about you." Our mother watched the whole exchange with anxious eyes. Our father said nothing. He never does. Later, while I was helping clean up, I saw my mother shoving an old cardboard box into the hall closet. "Just old junk," she said quickly, stepping in front of it. But I caught a glimpse of what was inside an envelope with my name on it, what looked like my old Social Security card documents I hadn't seen in years. I didn't push. I never do. But I filed it away in my mind, just like the credit letter, just like every small thing that never quite added up. 3 weeks later, my phone rang at 3:07 a.m., and everything I thought I knew about my family, about my sister, about myself, was about to be ripped apart. The call came at 3:07 in the morning. I know the exact time because I stared at my phone for 3 full seconds before answering, watching the numbers glow in the darkness of my bedroom. Charlotte's name on the screen. My sister, who hadn't called me in weeks, suddenly desperate to reach me in the middle of the night. I answered, and the sound of her sobbing hit me like a wave. She could barely get the words out between gasps. Rachel, please, you have to help me. I owe people money. Dangerous people. $18,000. If I don't pay them by tomorrow morning, they're going to kill me. I'm not exaggerating. They said they would hurt me. Please, Rachel. Mom and Dad don't have it. You're the only one who can help. You're the only one. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Despite everything, despite the years of being treated like I didn't matter, despite the cruel comments and the favoritism, and the way she looked at me like I was beneath her, my protective instincts kicked in. She was still my little sister. She was still family. I was already thinking about how quickly I could transfer money, which accounts I could pull from, whether my savings would cover it. Okay, I said, my voice shaking. Okay, Charlotte, calm down. Tell me where to send it. I'll figure it out. And then I heard it. Her voice shifted. She wasn't talking to me anymore. She was talking to someone else in the room, and she didn't realize the call was still connected. She had pulled the phone away from her ear, thinking she had hung up. A man's voice came through low and confident, almost amused. That was perfect. She bought every word. She'll send the money, and then we take it and disappear. By the time anyone figures out what happened, we'll be long gone. Charlotte laughed. It was a sound I had never heard from her before, cold, triumphant. I told you she would fall for it. She's always been an easy target, too desperate to be needed, too stupid to see what's right in front of her. The man laughed too, and something about his voice, something about the way he spoke felt familiar. A certain smoothness, a certain rhythm. But my mind was racing too fast to place it. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't confront her. Instead, something inside me went very still and very cold. My accountant's brain took over. I opened the voice recorder app on my phone and held it close to the speaker, capturing the last 40 seconds of their conversation before I silently ended the call. I sat in the darkness for a long time after that. My hands were trembling, but my mind was already working. Save the recording. Screenshot the call log. Document everything. I didn't know yet what I was preparing for, but some instinct told me I would need proof. I would need evidence, because whatever was happening, it was bigger than a late-night phone call. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, Charlotte was gone. Her phone went straight to voicemail. She didn't respond to texts. She didn't come home to our parents' house. She had simply vanished. But that didn't stop my mother from calling me. She was hysterical, screaming so loud, I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Charlotte told us 3 days ago that she was in trouble. She said she was going to ask you for help. She said you were the only one who could save her. And now she's gone. If you refused her, if you turned your back on her, and she hurt herself because of you, I will never forgive you, Rachel. Never. I tried to explain. I tried to tell her what I had heard the conversation. Charlotte didn't know I was listening to the man's voice. The plan to take my money and run. But my mother wouldn't let me finish a single sentence. You've always been jealous of your sister. You've always wanted to see her fail. You couldn't stand that she needed you for once, so you let her down. This is your fault. Whatever happens to her is on your hands. She hung up on me. In the background, just before the call ended, I heard my father. He said nothing. He never does. 1 week later, my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, calm and professional, introduced herself as Special Agent Sarah Morrison from the FBI's Philadelphia field office. She told me that Charlotte was under federal investigation for involvement in a large-scale investment fraud scheme. Multiple victims across 3 states, approximately $250,000 stolen through fake investment accounts and fraudulent financial instruments. And then she told me something that made my blood run cold. Ms. Hayes, your name and social security number appear on multiple accounts connected to this fraud. Your sister was questioned by our agents 4 days ago. During that interview, she stated that you are the mastermind behind this operation. She claims you forced her to participate and used her identity to hide your own involvement. I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt around me. That's not true, I managed to say. I didn't do any of this. I don't know anything about these accounts. I'm not making accusations at this time, Ms. Hayes. I'm informing you that you are currently a person of interest in this investigation. I would strongly recommend that you retain legal counsel. We will be in touch to schedule a formal interview." She hung up, and I stood there in my kitchen phone, still pressed to my ear, trying to understand what had just happened. Charlotte had been questioned by the FBI. She had pointed the finger at me, blamed me for everything. And then she had disappeared knowing exactly what she had set in motion. Within 48 hours, the FBI contacted my company. They requested my employment records, my financial access logs, every transaction I had ever touched. Legal notified HR. And just like that, I was called into my director's office. He couldn't even look at me when he said it. "This is just procedure, Rachel. Administrative leave. Pending the outcome of the investigation. I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding." I packed my desk in silence. 8 years at that company. A spotless record. Not a single complaint, not a single error. And now I was walking out like a criminal carrying a cardboard box of personal items while my coworkers pretended not to watch. I was almost at the elevator when someone stopped me. Linda Chen, a woman in her early 60s who had transferred to our department a few years back. I had helped train her when she first arrived. We had eaten lunch together almost every week since then. She pressed something into my hand. A business card, a criminal defense attorney. "I've known you for 8 years, Rachel," she said quietly. "You're the most honest person in this building. Whatever this is, you fight it. And when you need someone to testify about your character, you call me. I mean it." For the first time in days, I felt tears threatening. I wasn't alone, not completely. 2 weeks later, I walked into the FBI field office for my formal interview. I had prepared everything organized, every document rehearsed my answers until I could recite them in my sleep. I was ready to defend myself, but I wasn't ready for what I saw when I walked through those doors. Charlotte was already there, sitting in a conference room down the hall, visible through the glass partition. She looked up as I passed, and our eyes met. She smiled. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting her whole life for this moment. That smile haunted me through every moment of the next 2 weeks. I replayed it in my mind while I prepared for my formal interview, while I organized every document I had, while I practiced my answers until they felt like second nature. Charlotte had looked at me like she had already won, like everything was going exactly according to plan, but she didn't know about the recording. She didn't know that her careless mistake that night had given me the one weapon I needed to fight back. When I finally sat down in the FBI interview room, I was terrified, but I was also ready. Agent Morrison started by showing me Charlotte's statement. My sister had been questioned extensively, and her story was polished, rehearsed, delivered with tears at all the right moments. According to Charlotte, I had always been the controlling one in the family, the smart one, the one who handled finances and made decisions. She claimed I had approached her 2 years ago with an investment opportunity. She said I told her I needed her name on some accounts for tax purposes. She said she didn't understand what she was signing, but she trusted me because I was her big sister. Then came the part that made my stomach turn. Charlotte claimed that when she realized what was happening, she tried to stop it. But I threatened her. I told her that if she said anything to anyone, I would make sure she went to prison instead of me. She said she had been living in fear ever since, too scared to speak up, too scared to go to the authorities. It was a masterpiece of lies. Every word designed to make her look like the innocent victim and me like the villain. Agent Morrison spread documents across the table. Bank accounts opened in my name that I had never seen before. Signatures that looked eerily similar to mine. Loan applications that listed my employer, my salary, my address. Investment accounts promising 15% returns to victims who would never see their money again. The paper trail was devastating. "These signatures," Morrison said, tapping the papers. "They match samples we have of your handwriting." I stared at them, my heart sinking. "I've never seen these accounts. I didn't sign any of this. I swear to you." Morrison's expression gave nothing away. Then she slid a photograph across the table. "Do you recognize this man? He's been identified as your sister's boyfriend and the likely orchestrator of this scheme. Real name, Mark Lawson. Prior fraud convictions in Arizona and Nevada." I looked at the photo, and the room tilted around me. It was him. 10 years older now. A few more lines around his eyes, a little gray at his temples, but the same easy smile, the same warm, calculating gaze that had once made me feel like I was the center of his universe. The same face I had loved with everything I had right before he vanished with my savings and my ability to trust. Ms. Hayes. "Are you all right?" My voice came out as a whisper. "He didn't just target my sister, he targeted me first, 10 years ago. He stole $15,000 from me." Morrison's eyebrows rose. She made a note on her pad. "You're saying you have a prior history with this individual. I was going to marry him." My hands were shaking now, and I couldn't make them stop. "His name wasn't Mark then. He called himself David. He made me believe he loved me. And then one day he was just gone, along with everything I had saved. I never reported it. I was too ashamed. I thought I would never see him again." The room went silent. Morrison studied me for a long moment. Then she said, "This changes the profile of this case significantly. We need you to tell us everything you remember about him." So I did, every detail I could recall from 10 years ago. And as I talked as Morrison asked questions and made notes, the investigation began to shift. They started digging deeper, and what they found was worse than I could have imagined. The identity theft didn't start with Mark. It started with Charlotte, 6 years ago, 4 years before Mark ever entered the picture. Credit cards I never applied for opened in my name at addresses where Charlotte had lived, a car loan I never signed. Personal loans taken out using my Social Security number payments, missed accounts sent to collections, all of it traced back to my sister. I remembered the strange letter I had received years ago, the one about a credit account I had never opened. The bank had told me it was resolved. I had let it go. But it wasn't resolved, it was just the beginning. Morrison pulled up more documents. "These applications go back years. The signature is similar to yours, but there are inconsistencies. We'll need forensic analysis to confirm, but—" I leaned forward, cutting her off. Something had caught my eye. "The R. Look at the capital R in Rachel." Morrison looked at me. "I always start my capital R from the bottom loop and sweep upward. It's a habit I've had since I was a child. These signatures start from the top and curve down. And the spacing between my first and last name, I leave a consistent gap, exactly the width of 2 letters. I've done it that way my whole life. These signatures are crowded together. There's almost no space at all." Morrison studied the documents, then studied me. "You have a good eye. I'm an accountant. Details are my job. Noticing what doesn't match is what I do every single day." She made another note. "We'll have a forensic document examiner confirm your observations. But this supports what's becoming clear. You're not the perpetrator here, Ms. Hayes. You're the primary victim." I felt something shift inside me. For weeks I had been drowning, accused, blamed, suspended from my job, abandoned by my family. But now finally someone was listening. Someone was seeing the truth. I took a breath. Then I placed my phone on the table. "I have something else, a recording. From the night Charlotte called me asking for money." I played the audio. The room listened in complete silence, Charlotte's voice cold and mocking. "She's always been an easy target, too desperate to be needed." Mark's voice confident and cruel. "We take the money and disappear." When it ended, Morrison looked at me with something that might have been respect. "Pennsylvania is a 2-party consent state for recordings." "I know, I've already consulted with an attorney." I kept my voice steady. "I didn't record an active conversation. Charlotte failed to disconnect the call. I recorded what was audible from my own phone after the call had effectively ended on her side. My lawyer says it's admissible as supporting evidence, and it corroborates everything else." Morrison almost smiled. "You came prepared." I've spent 10 years learning to protect myself. After what Mark did to me the first time, I swore I would never be that vulnerable again. I didn't know what I was preparing for, but I was preparing for something. And after the interview, I sat in my car for a long time. My hands were still trembling, but something inside me had changed. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was fighting back. I picked up my phone and called my father. He answered on the second ring, his voice cautious. "Rachel." "Dad, I need your help. I need to prove I'm innocent, and I need you to finally tell me the truth." I didn't give him time to interrupt. That box Mom hid at Thanksgiving, I know you know what's in it. I know you've been silent about Charlotte for years. I need you to stop being silent now. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with exhaustion and something that sounded like guilt. Come to the house tomorrow. Come alone. It's time you knew everything. The next morning, my father was sitting on the front porch with the cardboard box in his lap. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. Your mother doesn't know I'm showing you this, he said quietly. She'll never forgive me for it, but you deserve the truth. He opened the box, and what I saw inside changed everything I thought I knew about my family. Inside that box was my entire identity, my original birth certificate creased and yellowed with age, my social security card, the one I had assumed was lost years ago when I moved apartments, documents I thought had simply disappeared in the chaos of life, but they hadn't disappeared. They had been taken, and beneath those documents stacked in neat piles held together with rubber bands were dozens of letters, all written in Charlotte's handwriting, all spanning years. My father didn't want to show me this at the house. He was too afraid my mother would see. So we sat in his truck parked at a gas station a mile away, and I read through letter after letter while my hands trembled and my world fell apart piece by piece. Letters to aunts and uncles. Letters to cousins I barely knew. Letters to family friends who had known us since we were children. Every single one asking for money. Every single one telling a different lie. Charlotte claimed she had a medical emergency and needed $3,000 for surgery. Charlotte claimed she was escaping an abusive boyfriend and needed money for a security deposit on a new apartment. Charlotte claimed her wallet had been stolen and she needed cash to get through the week. Charlotte claimed she had a job opportunity but needed to pay for training up front. Some of the letters had handwritten notes attached, responses from relatives who had sent money confused and concerned, asking my parents if Charlotte was okay, asking why she needed so much help, asking if something was wrong. I started collecting these 5 years ago, my father said. His voice was hollow, empty of everything except exhaustion. Your Aunt May called me one day asking why Charlotte needed $3,000 for a surgery she never had. She had sent the money weeks earlier. Charlotte had cashed the check and never mentioned it again. That's when I realized this wasn't a one-time thing. It was a pattern. It had been going on for years. I flipped through the letters, my stomach churning. You knew. All this time you knew what she was doing. I knew she was troubled. I knew she was lying to people. He stared out the windshield at nothing. But your mother can't see it. She won't see it. Every time I tried to bring it up, every time I suggested that Charlotte needed help, real help, she would shut down completely. She would threaten to leave me. She would accuse me of being cruel to a child who needed protection. Charlotte is 31 years old, Dad. She's not a child. To your mother, she'll always be that baby she almost... He stopped himself. His jaw tightened. I turned to look at him. Almost what? What were you going to say? He was quiet for a long time. I could see him wrestling with something, some secret he had carried for decades. Finally, he shook his head. That's not my secret to tell. But you should ask your mother. After all this is over, when the dust settles, you should ask her why she could never say no to Charlotte. Ask her why she protected her no matter what. The answer might help you understand. He reached into the box and pulled out one more item. My old Social Security card, the one I had searched for years ago and never found. Charlotte took this from the house 6 years ago, he said quietly. She told your mother she needed it for a job application, some paperwork thing. She promised to bring it right back. He paused. Your mother watched her take it. Your mother said nothing when she never returned it. Your mother knew Rachel. She knew, and she covered for her. Something cracked inside me then. It wasn't surprise. I think part of me had always known. But hearing it confirmed, hearing my father say the words out loud, broke something that had been holding together for 35 years. Mom knew. She watched Charlotte steal my identity, and she protected her. My father's silence was the only answer I needed. I took that box of evidence to the FBI the next day, and over the following weeks, the case against Charlotte and Mark collapsed into chaos. But it wasn't the kind of chaos that helped them. It was the kind that destroyed them both. Facing federal charges and the mountain of evidence I had provided, their alliance shattered completely. Charlotte's lawyer tried a new strategy. He argued that she had been groomed and manipulated by a professional con artist. Mark had threatened her, the lawyer claimed. He had controlled her through fear. She was a victim of domestic coercion, not a willing participant. Mark's lawyer fired back with a different story entirely. They had recovered text messages from cloud backups, conversations between Mark and Charlotte spanning months, messages where Charlotte bragged about having access to her sister's identity for years, messages where Charlotte suggested they go bigger, use my clean credit history for investment fraud instead of just credit cards and small loans, messages where Charlotte called me the golden child who deserved to lose everything. The prosecution presented both narratives to the judge during the preliminary hearing. In the end, it didn't matter who had manipulated whom. It didn't matter who started it or who pushed it further. Both of them were demonstrably guilty. Both of them were going to prison. I sat in the courtroom that day, watching from across the aisle. My mother was there too, sitting behind Charlotte, still believing somehow that her baby was innocent. When the judge laid out the evidence, when the full scope of what Charlotte had done became undeniably clear, my mother fainted, just collapsed in her seat. My father caught her before she hit the floor. I watched it happen. I didn't move to help. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt a strange, cold clarity. Like I was finally seeing my family for exactly what it was. The formal charges came down a few weeks later. Mark Lawson faced 12 federal counts, including wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, bank fraud, and conspiracy. Given his prior convictions in other states, prosecutors recommended 8 to 10 years in federal prison. Charlotte faced 7 counts, including identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. That last charge was added specifically because of her attempt to frame me. Prosecutors recommended 4 to 5 years. Agent Morrison called me personally to deliver the news I had been waiting months to hear. You've been officially cleared, Ms. Hayes. You're no longer a person of interest. The forensic document analysis confirmed all the signatures were forged. The IP addresses for every fraudulent account traced back to locations where Charlotte and Mark lived. You're a victim, legally, officially on the record. I thanked her. I hung up, and I sat in my apartment in complete silence for an hour, just breathing. Then I called HR and requested reinstatement. My company took me back. My director apologized in person, awkwardly but sincerely. He said they should have trusted me. He said they were sorry for how it was handled. I nodded and accepted his apology because there was nothing else to do. Linda was waiting at my desk on my first morning back. She had bought a small plant with a ribbon tied around the pot. "Told you," she said with a smile. "Most honest person in the building." I smiled back. It felt strange on my face. I hadn't smiled in months. That evening, my credit monitoring service sent an alert. My credit score had been corrected. The fraudulent accounts were being removed one by one. 7 years of invisible damage slowly being undone. I wasn't celebrating, not yet. The trial was still ahead. Charlotte and Mark hadn't been sentenced, and my family was a wound I didn't know how to heal. My mother still wasn't speaking to me. My father called sometimes short conversations full of things neither of us knew how to say. But I was standing. After everything they had done to me, I was still standing. 2 weeks before the sentencing hearing, I received a letter in the mail, handwritten. The return address was the Federal Detention Center where Charlotte was being held. I recognized her handwriting immediately. "I need to see you one more time. There's something I have to tell you. Something about Mom, about why I became this way. You deserve to know the whole truth, even if you hate me after. Especially if you hate me after. Please, Rachel, just once." I read that letter 3 times. I sat with it for 2 days, turning the words over in my mind. Then I requested a visitation appointment. The federal detention facility was cold and gray, everything designed to strip away any sense of comfort or warmth. I sat in the visitation room for 20 minutes waiting, wondering if I had made a mistake by coming. Part of me wanted to leave before Charlotte was even brought in, but I stayed. I needed to hear what she had to say. I needed to understand, even if understanding changed nothing. When they finally brought her in, I barely recognized her. Charlotte looked smaller somehow, older. The confidence that had always sharpened her features, that smug certainty that she was better than everyone else, had crumbled into something hollow and broken. She sat down across from me, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. I didn't think you'd come, she finally said. I almost didn't. She nodded, her hands folded on the table between us, fingers twisting together nervously. I need to tell you something. Something I've never told anyone, not even Mark. She took a shaky breath. When I was 7 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night. I heard Mom crying in the kitchen. She was on the phone with someone, Grandma, I think. And she was saying things, terrible things. She said she couldn't do it anymore. She said 2 kids was too much. She said she had already signed the papers. Charlotte's voice cracked. She was going to give me away, Rachel. She was going to let strangers take me. I stared at her, trying to process what I was hearing. She said she couldn't afford me. She said you were easier because you were older. You didn't need as much. But me... Tears were streaming down Charlotte's face now. I heard every word. I was 7 years old, and I heard my mother say she was going to throw me away like I was nothing. I remembered my mother's strange comment years ago, that moment when she had stopped herself mid-sentence. You don't understand what I almost did. Now I understood. She changed her mind, Charlotte continued. Obviously. I'm still here, but I never forgot what I heard that night. I spent my whole life waiting for her to change it back. Every time she bought me something, every time she defended me, every time she chose me over you, I thought she was making up for almost throwing me away. And I was terrified that if I ever stopped being her favorite, if I ever stopped being special, she would finally do it. She would finally get rid of me. Charlotte looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. So I made sure I was always the one who needed her most. I made sure you were always the one she could ignore, because if she ever had to choose between us, I needed her to choose me. Every single time. I couldn't survive being abandoned again. I sat in silence, letting her words sink in. Something in my chest ached, but not for myself. For the first time, I felt something like pity for the terrified 7-year-old girl who had built a lifetime of destruction on one overheard phone call. You were a child, I finally said. What you heard was traumatic. I understand that. A flicker of hope crossed Charlotte's face. But you're not a child anymore, I continued. You've been an adult for over a decade. You chose to steal my identity. You chose to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. You chose to let me lose my job, my reputation, potentially my freedom, just to save yourself. Those weren't the choices of a scared little girl. Those were the choices of a grown woman who decided her sister's life was worth destroying. I stood up. I hope you find peace someday, Charlotte. I genuinely hope you get the help you need. But I can't give you forgiveness. That's something you have to earn from yourself through years of work and change, not through a single conversation. Charlotte's face crumpled. Rachel, please. Goodbye, Charlotte. I walked out without looking back. 2 weeks after the sentencing, my mother called. Her voice was small and tentative, nothing like the woman who had screamed accusations at me months earlier. She asked if we could meet just the 2 of us. She said she needed to explain. I agreed, but on my terms. A coffee shop. Public. Neutral ground. She looked like she had aged 10 years. She could barely meet my eyes when she sat down across from me. Charlotte told me what she said to you, about what she heard when she was 7. I nodded and waited. It's true. Her hand shook around her coffee cup. 30 years ago, we almost gave her up. Your father had lost his job. We were 3 months behind on rent. We couldn't feed 2 children. I called an adoption agency. I signed the preliminary paperwork. She took a ragged breath. And then the night before the home visit, I went to check on Charlotte in her crib. She was awake looking at me with those big eyes, and I realized I couldn't do it. I tore up the papers. I never spoke of it again. But Charlotte heard you. My mother's face contorted with pain. I didn't know. Not for years. I just thought she needed extra love, extra protection. I spent 30 years trying to make up for something I almost did, and in doing that, I abandoned the daughter I already had. Yes, I said quietly, you did. She flinched at my words. When Charlotte took my documents 6 years ago, you saw her. You knew what she was doing, and you said nothing. Every time I thought about confronting her, I remembered that night. I remembered almost giving her away. I told myself just this once, just let it go, I'll deal with it later. There was no later. No, there wasn't. And you paid for every single one of my choices. I was silent for a long moment, watching my mother cry. Then I spoke. I don't forgive you. I may never forgive you. What happened to Charlotte was terrible, But what you did to me was a choice. You made that choice every day for 30 years. But I'm not cutting you out completely. If you want to be part of my life, it will be different. We start from zero. No more lies. No more choosing Charlotte over me. And you get therapy to deal with what you've been carrying. You'd give me that chance. I'm giving myself that chance. I'm the one who decides whether to let you in, and I'm the one who decides how much. The sentencing hearing was efficient. Charlotte received 4 years in federal prison, 3 years supervised release, and $127,000 in restitution. Mark received 9 years and $380,000 in restitution. When the judge read the sentences, I sat in the gallery. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I simply breathed. 1 year later, I sat in my new corner office, senior manager. On my desk were 2 photographs. An old family portrait placed face down, and a new photo of me with Linda and colleagues at my promotion dinner, smiling like I meant it. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother asking if she and Dad could visit next weekend. I typed back, "Okay, but just coffee, my place, my terms." Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting back. It's walking forward with your boundaries clear and your life finally in your own hands. I had spent 35 years being invisible. I had learned the hard way that the people who were supposed to protect me had failed, but I had also learned something else. I could protect myself, and that was enough. Rachel's story reminds us of something we often forget. The people who are supposed to love us the most can sometimes hurt us the deepest. Family is not just about blood. It is about respect, honesty, and treating each other with dignity. When those things are missing, no amount of shared history can make up for the damage. If there is one lesson we can take from what Rachel went through, it is this: protecting yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. Too many of us, especially women, have been taught to put everyone else first. We are taught to forgive quickly, to keep the peace, to sacrifice our own well-being for family harmony. But Rachel's story shows us what happens when we ignore the warning signs, when we dismiss the small things that don't add up, when we trust blindly instead of trusting wisely. Pay attention to the details. Trust your instincts. Document everything when something feels wrong. These are not signs of paranoia. They are signs of wisdom. Rachel survived because she had spent years learning to protect herself. She kept that strange credit letter. She recorded that phone call. She noticed the differences in those forged signatures. Those small habits saved her life. And here is another truth this story teaches us: forgiveness is not required for healing. Rachel did not forgive her sister. She did not fully forgive her mother. And that is okay. Forgiveness is a personal choice, not an obligation. What matters is that Rachel set boundaries. She decided what she was willing to accept and what she was not. She took control of her own story instead of letting others write it for her. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, if you have ever been the one expected to give while others only took, know that you are not alone. Your feelings are valid. Your pain is real, and you have the right to build a life that belongs only to you. Thank you for listening today. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of someone in your own life, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Leave a comment below telling us what you think. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted? How did you find strength to move forward? We read every comment, and your stories matter to us. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.